All right, so we're back to the intro to silent aggression with your host El Gone. And today, this is probably going to be broken down to maybe uh, three part fours. So this is the intro part four, but it's probably going to be broken down to sub A, B, and C, however many need to be in order for us to get through this particular situation. Okay. So, again, all the information is on disk and it is on a 11 gigabyte plus thumb drive. You have to purchase the thumb drive. In order to get a thumb drive, you have to send me an email to moorishtravler. It's MOORISHTRAVLER at gmail.com. MOORISH, Moorish Traveler, TRAVLER. Not Moorish Traveler, just Moorish Traveler. Okay, at gmail.com. And on that disc, the disc is $25 until 2023. Then it becomes 32. All right. It's going to have videos and documents and stuff that we'll be going through in order for you to be able to use those documents. Also, if you guys are interested in anything else, you got to send an email. When I do any updates to the thumb drives, I will send those emails with the updated either access, where to get that from off the server, or it might be attached to the email. Depends on how big it is. If it's a PDF or Word or anything like that, or open source or something like that, it might be an email. But if it's a video or something that has a bigger footprint, then you'd probably have to get a link to the server in order for you to download and add it to your thumb drive. Your thumb drive, I recommend that you add information that you find to the thumb drive, so that when we do have the forums where we all do meet me, and then we can all have discussions, and then we'll have a whole organization, have it organized in the point where you can decide what we're going to focus on for that particular segment. Now, all these and this information is free. You can get all this information offline at some point somewhere. Research. I have a lot of information that's already gathered. If you're interested in that, then again, send it to the email. If you want to do your research, just listen to the video. You can. The video is not going to be as extensive as the individual classes. Now, the classes is going to be like this. It's going to be with the thumb drive, so you have your information that you need as we go over and break things down. We also have it, so we're going to be breaking it down to either you can do one flat gift, or you can gift per episode, series, video, what have you. The things that you're seeing now are all introductory, so they're all are included in the introductory. So it's no cost to anybody. This is a point, and it's no cost really about any of this information. It's me disseminating it to you and breaking it down so that you dig where it's coming from. But also, when we start getting into other documents, sometimes we need to work together. And that's what I'm interested in. I want us to work together on creating a situation where we all can use this together. Now, let's just get on into it. This segment is going to be about, I'm pulling some information from a book that's called Paper arrows. Okay, so you can look that up if you want. Again, that information is on the thumb drive, uh, or CD if you need a DVD. Or I was going to set it up and have it on a drive with like online. Problem is you're still using totally their systems. So I have a server somewhere. I have a server that this information is on, and there we'll be doing some meets, but I gotta first get up to maybe 25 to 50 people. I like to do that first. Try to get up to a real good class, a real good report. I'm calling them reports and not classes, because this is not a class where you want to be sitting down and like, it's a class. You know what I mean? This is information that's being transferred back and forth. It'll be led by me. I pretty much keep the outline, and then we have questions and emails and stuff like that. And as it develops, we'll move forward into things that's going on in the world. Like we do a hard copy. If you check the last video, it was a hard copy. It's kind of when the current events on certain subjects. And so the hard copy will be just that. I drop in on a particular subject matter or a series of subjects and have it listed, and we'll kind of go through to see what the headlines are and kind of pick through it, and then we'll leave that alone, and you guys can research, kind of trying to get you in the mind frame of when you're seeing certain activities going on with the wording, what that really means, not what it means on face value, but what it really means in code. All right, let's get into this. Paper Arrows. Paper Arrows is a book that I think that everyone should look at this first. This is just one of many books, but this particular one I found that when I have discussions with folk, just kind of break stuff down a little bit straightforward, and you kind of get an idea, and then we can kind of jump back over to things like this. Okay, so when we start talking about instruments, and we're talking about debt, and we're talking about negotiable. These are things you need to know: what an instrument is, what debt is, and what's negotiable. All right, then you put that together: negotiable, debt, instruments. What are they? All right, but this is what this whole thing is all about. And I'm not going to go through this entire thing because it's a lot of stuff that you need to know. It's on the drive, but we will target a few things in there and have some conversation about it. You know, so like this, for instance, right here. But before we get into that, fraud everywhere. Excerpts from Howard Griswold. Many of the teachings that we have been taught in the past by teachers, preachers, parents, and people hiring are bringing us the news. Just to name a few, have been found to be wrong. The people teaching us may not have intended to teach us wrong. It was that they did not know that the information was wrong. It was not due to intentional spread of wrong information, although there is a lot of that also. It is also just nobody is aware of the truth. I found that a lot of these things that we have taught over the last 20 years, and it's been more than that since this particular book, have been wrong. So we will not place blame on anyone, but try to learn more and go forward with what we can confirm. A lot of our mistakes were due to misconceptions carried around all of our lives. Now, this misconception is a big, big thing. This is a real big thing. It's a real big thing that we got going on. So let's keep going. One misconception is that we're all citizens of the United States, and anybody who told me different would have a fight on his hands. But it turns out that I never worked for the United States in my life. I have only visited there about 5 times in my whole life. I know that now, but when I was a kid, I would have sworn I lived in the United States. All the way up until a few years ago, I still have sworn I lived in the United States, but I found out that a lot of things in the past few years, due to the research of my patriotic independent researchers, there's people like you, right? People like me. And one of them specifically discovered a court case to help confirm my thinking. This court case is New York. Here it is here. This court case verified in one sentence all the things I thought I was finding out about that were reversing the beliefs that I had previously held. The statement out of the case is the United States government is a foreign corporation with respect to state. The United States government is a foreign corporation in respect to a state. Another case that helps explain the confusion is this right here. This case explains that the federal government is a state bound by all the provisions of the interstate agreement on detainers. First of all, whoever thought that the government was a corporation, I thought it was a government formulated by God-given constitution. I doubt if God had anything to do with that, but that is what I previously believed. A corporation is a group of people who get together for the purpose of making profit. Government is a cover up for the means by which the group will make a profit. Governments and religions are a lot alike in their business endeavors. They said it was a separation of what did it say, state, church and state. Religions are created to cover up the man's inability to have knowledge and his insecurities. Let's read that again. Religions are created to cover up man's inability to have knowledge and his insecurities. The word religion means to do things simultaneously, consecutively, consistently. It is a means to do the same thing every day the same way, to be consistent. Governments were created by religions. All law goes back to something called ecclesiastical laws. Religions created the laws, but God did not create religions. I cannot find the word mentioned in the Bible. There is nothing in there about religions. There is something in there about governments, but that was not found in the original Hebrew text. The newer books mention governments, but the older ones did not. These newer books combine the government with religion. When we found this governmental structure known as the separation of church and state, I just mentioned that, which actually means that togetherness of the church and state. Church cannot exist without the license from the state. Again, we can see how backwards everything seems to be when studied in some detail. Where is the separation? There is no separation if one has to be subservient to the other through licensing. Something is wrong in all of this when it is twisted around so much as to be backwards from what is said to what is meant. These wheels were put into motion thousands of years ago, and there may or may not be someone causing the confusion to survive today. But because of the confusion, we are wandering aimlessly. One of the things we have learned is that this thing called the United States is a corporation, and it is a foreign to the people. The question is, who's the people? We talked about that earlier, which is you and me, which means I'm not a citizen of it, although I have been told to believe just that. In school, we were taught civics, which was based on Roman civil law, and it comes from the Latin word civitas, which means citizen. It is Roman citizen law. We actually have a Roman Empire government, which is a duplication of the ancient Roman Empire. If you study the Roman Empire and how its government works, you will see the relationship between the system and the United States system today. You can look it up and check it out for yourself. Most law students would tell you that they study Roman civil law in law school. Why would they study foreign law? Why not study American law in the American law school? We are living under Babylonian law or Roman law, which is the same thing. So, in order to understand what is going on in our law today, we had to go back to those ancient systems and come forward to comprehend the theory behind the function of the law. Ancient English feudalism is the forerunner of our system of real property. The property ownership in this country is feudalistic in nature. But if you use the feudal terms of the old law from the common law of England and the modern law courts, they will replay that they do not know what you're talking about. They do not use those old words. They have new words. They have twisted the meaning even further. The meanings are what we have changed so tremendously, and that has led us astray from knowledge. Back in grade school, the nun said, "Now we are going to learn how to be good citizens." Then they handed out a little book called Civics. They never said that I was a citizen, but they sure did imply it with giving me the book and telling me we are going to learn how to be a good one. It is very interesting how we can be led to believe something, but we are never told it. Deception is all through this system. One of the things that we first memorized was the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States. It is still in my memory. I still remember doing it. I have not done it lately. I do not have any allegiance to the United States or their stupid flag. For those who think that it is a disgrace to talk that way about the American flag, they might be surprised to know that the Pledge of Allegiance says the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. What is it? It is the United States, which is standing up for the republic, America. The United States, the government, was to be the protector of America. The government was set up to defend America, the people. The government created a flag, which is the flag of the government, not the flag of America. America does not have a flag. The most important word in there is republic. What is a republic? I looked all over the place for a definition and could not find more than a few words. No matter what dictionary I use, when the political powers do not want something known, they just barely cover it in the available definitions. If they want you to be totally confused, the definition has 3 pages long. If they want it hidden, it's only a sentence or two. All right. Well, let's see. That's probably boring you guys. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. No, it's not boring me. But let's jump over to the other side. We're kind of getting some ideas of what we're dealing with here. This is called paper arrows. Now, let's get up to closer times. Since 1933, the United States has accepted these non-cash accrual exchanges as a matter of law and equity. House Joint Resolution 192 and so on and so forth are still in effect. Other public policy directives and Supreme Court decisions, Guarantee Trust Company of New York versus Henwood and you can go here, show these NDIAs as public policy remedy for the removal of gold and silver coinage. Okay, so what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? Well, now we got a little taste of the United States. Let's get into, where did that go? Observe the process. I want you guys to get into some of this here. Hold on. Hold on. So much stuff in here. Let me get into the green card. I want this to tap y'all a little bit. I had planned to read this whole thing, but I know some of the stuff bores you guys. I'm trying to let you see where I'm going. and maybe I should just finish reading it because you got to go back to find out about remedy, because that's why it's in capital. Remedy means something particular. Uh, Properly tendered NDIs place subordinate public officials to the Secretary of the Treasury in a position where they must then legally acknowledge and accept the Secretary's authority and the validity of these instruments. Oh, those in responsible for position at licensed financial institutions, remember that? Remember we just talked about church and state and licensing. Financial institutions cannot lawfully deny, dishonor, or delay the processing of such NDIs. Banks are private corporations, but they are also quasi public, as evidenced by their involvement in the FDIC, TTNL, tax accounts, government CDs, and operate under the authority of the federal banking regulations. Therefore, banks cannot lawfully discriminate and deny the processing of NDAs. Now, let's go on back up. Let's go on back up to security and to negotiable instruments. We want to get into security instruments. Negotiable debt instruments. Okay. Only a debt instrument, promissory note, judgments, like you got a judgment for something on your credit report, you can pay for something or whatever, or a ticket. That's a judgment. Can meet the mandate under 12 USC Section 411. Since it is impossible to redeem a debt with a debtor or a note with a note, the status is non executable, thus, the umbrella of the UCC. Okay, so what am I talking about? Let's do one more. The currency, what we're talking about, of negotiable debt instruments is sounder than other types of currency. Wait a minute now. The currency of a negotiable debt instrument is sounder than other types of currency. Well, how many types of currency is it? It will reconnect the insolvent public. Now, remember I talked about public and private, right? So the public side of the economic system with its only source of credit and redemption, the private side. Okay, the contracts arise from commercial offers made by a public entity to other public entity held in collateral by creditor and private insolvent standing in law. These debt instruments can be used to enhance bank access, investment portfolios, discount leverages, etc. Hmm. The persons on the public side of the United States are United States citizens. Persons on the public are United States citizens. If a U.S. citizen collateral is lawfully held as debtor by a third party with a superior claim pursuant to the security agreement and said security interest is perfected under the UCC, then no government, state body politic, or any party in commerce can state a claim upon which relief can be granted. All standing in law is based on right of interest held to state and enforce a claim. Right of interest. So we're talking about interest in a debt. So that means the people who coming after you about whatever, they are coming after you about an interest they have in a debt that they claim that you owe. Okay, so that's getting further into some other stuff, and we'll stop here and then we'll go back here. All right, so Corpus Juris Secundum, a law encyclopedia. Under the word government, it explains that a republican form of government is a form of government in which any other form of government is the government. That seems a little amusing and surprising. Now, I talked about this to you guys in, I believe it was part three, last part, about what a republic is. Okay. It did not matter if the USSR, the Union of Soviet Scholastic or Socialist Scholastic, Socialist Republics, and Socialism in the United States and capitalism. Okay, socialism, capitalism. They both were united. Union, united, union. Union States, Union of Soviet. They both were united and had a republican form of government. Remember, they talk about a republican form of government, and what they say? The government in which any other form of government is the government. So, our system of politics was totally different from the other systems of politics, but they were both united republics. The Republicans' form of government is allowed either system. They were both the same. Russia has a republic, America has a republic. But we claim that here in America, this government is a democracy. Russia claimed that they have a socialist form of government, and they could very well be fitted into the definition of republic when it said that a republic allows any form of government that the country wants. The District of Columbia is the home of the democracy. What is the home of the corporation called? The United States of America. Corporate America has its own laws. Corporate America has its own laws, different from so called democracy or republic. Corporate America has its own laws. General Motors is a corporation that has its own laws for its workers. One of the laws is that you have to show up for work at 7:30 every morning during the week. If you do not, you're fired. If you show up at 10 every morning, you will get your pink slip and out the door you will go. Do you have a constitutional right to work? The Constitution gives somebody the right to work, but I'm not sure who that is. But since the Constitution was not written into the General Motors contract that was signed, there was no constitutional right to work at General Motors. So the point is that wherever you work at, you're under the laws in which your job has. Okay, your job gives you a demand, and you have to follow that demand or comply with that demand because you signed a contract with your company. Okay, all right, but I never showed up on time for work at General Motors, and I was always get to work at 9. However, General Motors has not fired me yet, and I have been doing this for years. The laws do not apply to me. The laws do not apply to me. The laws of the corporation known as General Motors do not apply to me because I do not have a contract with them and I do not work there. The laws of the corporation known as the United States do not apply to me because I do not have a contract with them and I do not work there either. All right. In Corpus Juris, it explains that there is a separation of power for the people and the land and the few people who create the main and maintain the government. This also explains that as a Republican form of government, it is self regulating. The Constitution gives the U.S. government the power to make all necessary laws for the United States, that is, for itself. Now, when it goes back to that court case that stated that the United States is a foreign corporation, and we realize that a corporation is a private entity, and that if you do not work for them and that their laws do not apply to you, then you can begin to understand concepts on which the country was built. The government laws did not apply to the people in the states. They only apply to the people and the properties that the government owned and controlled. It is no wonder then that people from all over the world wanted to come to a country where the government could not dictate the way for the common people to live. The knowledge of what I've just told you was prevalent in the early years of this country and was common knowledge, but the dying off of generations and the lack of knowledge being passed down to the next generation caused this awareness of how the government functioned is lost. By 1930s, this knowledge was almost completely destroyed. These basic ideas that were once common knowledge to all had all but vanished. No one was teaching the people about these basic concepts of government in America. As the people became less aware of how the government was to be operated, the government created for itself a new amendment. The men and the government usually accomplish this by causing an upheaval of some sort in order to give a cause and a reason to make a new amendment. The great upheaval that the men and the government caused what we call the Civil War. From that war came three amendments. They were 13th, 14th, and 15th. They were sometimes referred to as the War Amendments. The 13th Amendment dealt with slavery. The 14th Amendment allowed new type of citizen. Elective franchises was the issue with the 15th Amendment. But the real purpose of the three war amendments and this series of events around that time, including the death of Abraham Lincoln, the Civil War, and other upheavals, was to create a status of citizenship for corporations. That was the whole purpose. Citizenship for of corporations. Citizenship for corporations. The 14th Amendment did not create civil rights for the dark skinned people, as we have been led to believe through history books and such. That was the cover up, it was fraud. The 13th Amendment did not free any slaves or Slavs at all, but it did enslave the free. Now, look at that. It did not free any slaves at all, but it did enslave the free. So, in essence, people who thought they were free are no longer free. I found a book on the town library in Newport, Tennessee called Fraud Everywhere. It was written just after the Civil War and explains the war amendments and the war itself and what these things did to the society back then. It explained the fraud by showing copies of newspaper articles and other documentation. The author explained that the actions of the entire legislature was nothing but fraud. There's your book, Fraud Everywhere. Go look that up. If they knew back then that the government was fraudulent, why it allowed it to continue? How misled are we? There is a Republican form of government in America with the separation of power between the people of the states and the people of the government. Now it works both ways. If the government has no power to extend its laws to the people of the states, then the people of the states cannot tell the people in the government how to make their laws. It is a double edged sword. The people in the states knew back then that they did not have the power to tell the people in the government what to do. They said then what I say today. I do not care what Washington, D.C. does. I do not care who gets elected president. I do not care what laws they make. None of it applies to me. I do not care if they are a gigantic fraud as long as they do not come out here and bother me. I think we can stop there and go into another topic, unless you guys want me to go on with this reading. This is from Paper Arrows. You guys can go and get that, or you guys can get the disc that have all these on, and we can go through this. But this intro is to get you in the frame of mind of where we're going. And we're going to do this snappy. We're not going to be wasting a lot of time because we don't have any more time left. We need to get going. You know, you notice we in a lot of documents for those of us who have dark skin. Even if you get a tan, you got dark skin, right? Okay, I'm going to end this one and I'm going to pick back up on the part five and read more, but I don't want to drag this one out. You guys need to get this disc. You need to, so you can get into the class, so you can get into the reports, so that you can get to where we're trying to get to. What does all this have to do with you And what does this all have to do with me? How's this going to help me in my everyday life? And it will. Not this here. This, what we doing in the introductions, is only for the point or purpose of you understanding what has happened and what you're in. Okay, so that's, we gotta at least get you a foundation so you understand what's going on, and not just listen to me and commentary what I'm saying, but it's also we're gonna read the stuff so you can read it yourself. People have a tendency, a hard time to read. We got some reading going on. We got some audio from another group that has audio out there that makes some good statements. We're gonna listen to some audio. So we got a lot of stuff going on. We're going to doing some video. We're gonna do some extensive. We're gonna get past some this 30-minute thing. We're gonna be getting into an hour, hour and a half, 2 hour, talking about documents, you know, stuff like that. So, um, you know, but you want to get the thumb drive. Thumb drive has a lot of information on it compiled, so you don't have to do a lot of research to get these basics and then get some of the advanced. But you know, I think that's a small investment. So anyway, moorishtravler@gmail.com for now until we change that email address. I think all this stuff is getting ready to get changed up as we move further into this program. But in the meanwhile, um, Morris Traveler, MOORISHTRAVLER @gmail.com. And we're going to get ready to end this video as we do the other videos, right? We just stop recording.